Hi, Shauna here from Dancing Raven Studio. Welcome to Acrylics 101, Basics for Beginners. This is a class that was designed for absolute beginners, people like you who might have gone to a paint night and had such a great time you want to learn to do more painting, or people like me who wanted to paint for a long time and it took a while to get brave enough to even attempt. I started teaching this class in Yellowknife in Northwest Territories, Canada in 2014, and I've been teaching it locally every year, twice a year in that time frame. I will be covering the absolute basics so that you will really understand and have a strong foundation. So we'll be looking at paint tubes and the information that's on there. We're going to be exploring the quality of paint. We're going to be mixing colors. We're going to be doing value work, and we'll be doing 3 paintings over the course of this class. Let's begin right now with the supplies that you're going to need to be successful with this class. So let's get talking about art supplies. The first is the paintbrushes. When I teach in Yellowknife, I always provide 3 brushes, though the third one is something we don't use that much. From Rosemary and Company, they're ivory short flat, and Rosemary and Company a number 2 ivory pointed round. So a number 6 and a number 2. And you can get those online. They're really decent, they're really quite good quality brushes. I really like them. They have just enough stiffness. They have just enough stiffness to be able to move the paint around. And yeah, they just stand up to use. The other brush that I keep close by and I use regularly is the Dakota Princeton Art and Company Brush Company 6300F. So 6300F, and this is a bright, or it could be that it's a filbert actually. It's a filbert. And I use that, you'll see that I use that to push paint and move it around when it's in the wrong place and I need to manage it. The other brushes that I use, and it doesn't really matter, you could get a soft nylon brush from any place. I mean, you know, this is a Robert Simmons number 4 Sapphire, and this is the Robert Simmons liner. So this one's a flat and this is a liner. So I can get into my little details with that. Those are the brushes that I'll be using throughout the painting videos that you will see later on. So I got these paintbrushes from Delta Art in Alberta. These ones come out of the UK, and actually they often arrive faster than stuff if I order it from other places in Canada. So the other tool that's really important is a palette knife. So these 2 palette knives are pretty much the same shape, just different sizes. They're a Richardson stainless steel, 808 and 814. These will all be on the list, the supply list of the sizes of brushes. I will put down what kinds of brushes I have, but it's not necessary for you to buy exactly the brushes I have if you don't want to. Use what you have. I would recommend you find a brush that has some stiffness to it and not just a soft, inexpensive brush, because that's really hard to move paint around with. So you want to get a metal one, because metal stands up to abuse and use. It's always a little water spritzer. I mean, you don't need a very big one, and you want one that won't be spraying big globs of water like plant spritzers have big globs of water. A ruler, you can tell that it's well loved. Mechanical pencil. The next thing in our supply list is paper palettes. You can get white or you can get gray. It is a preference. I tend to work with gray, but you know, there are just times I work with white, so I'm not beholden to either or. You can choose which works best for you. And here's a kneaded eraser. I'm going to show you a little bit about the kneaded eraser, just simply because I've had students who had a kneaded eraser and didn't realize that you could clean it up once you've been, erasing graphite and stuff. The joy about kneaded eraser is that you can make it any shape you need to. If you need to get into a small area, you can make it a small little point, or you can shape it into a round shape so that you can bounce on whatever. If it's covered with graphite, you just knead it until it's all been absorbed in. The trick with this is keep it in a plastic bag to keep it clean. The next thing I want you to get is a watercolor pad. Not an expensive one. You want to get a super cheap one. This is perfect for what we're going to do with acrylics. Thicker paper. It's lovely to work with for these lessons that we're doing. It's a 9 by 12, so you'd have to cut it to an 8 by 11 to be able to put it into sheets. But this is not a paper, a watercolor paper you would actually use with watercolor. It would be an exercise in complete frustration because it doesn't absorb the paint properly and it does weird stuff. The other supply we're using is acrylic paint. And I just want to give you a little touch more information about acrylic paint. All acrylic paint, like every other paint, it has a medium that it is added into, and this is called a polymer for acrylic paint. This is the most fluid version, and it's an airbrush medium. I use it to thin out my paint, to add more. If I need it to be more liquidy, I will use that sort of half and half ratio with water. Here is a soft body polymer. Okay, this is pre-putting pigment in to color it. That's the start of acrylic paint. We have options. The first option is what we call a student grade paint. So it's a soft polymer. You can see that it's quite soft. The next one we're going to do, let's move this over a bit, is one step thicker than this airbrush medium, and it is called fluid. Okay, and you can see that it drips out, one drip, one drip. So, and this is an artist level paint, so it has a lot more pigment than the student body paint, and it has less filler. The next paint is a soft body paint, and it says it's soft body and you can see that it is much closer to actually even the student grade paint, but it has a lot of pigment in it, and it's an artist grade paint. So you can see how soft that is. The last variety I'm going to introduce you to is the heavy body paint, and this is the kind of paint that we're going to use. It's thicker, a little goes a long way, and you can see that it kind of holds in a much different way. And I use very thin applications of this heavy body paint. So let's take the student body paint, the student paint, and put it on. so that we can see what that does. And you can see that it holds a ridge nicely, and if you are a thicker painter, I'm a very thin painter, so that's not a quality that I think is important. Then we have the fluid paint, which is very, we can see how intense it covers though. It's quite good. Here's a soft body paint. Quality is fairly similar to the student grade. And last is the one that I use the most, the heavy body. It's beautiful and it's thick and a little goes a long way. I would really prefer if you bought a heavy body paint for this class. Though if you have others already in your stash and it's not heavy body, you're more than welcome to use it. The student level paint, I think, could be an exercise in frustration. It doesn't have the same coverage, it doesn't have the same pigment, but I mean, you can use that if you want. It certainly is cheaper if you're just testing this out and trying it. But the heavy body paint is worth the money. You'll really appreciate working with it. The last supply that I'm going to show you is the boards that I use. I prefer painting on wood, on Masonite. I like the smoothness of it. If you want to use canvas, you're more than welcome to do that. If you want to use canvas paper for these exercises, you're more than welcome to do that. So I get them just like this. They're just plain. You can buy boards that are already pre-primed. You're more than welcome to do that. I get these by vast amounts. And I'm happy to do my own priming. I use golden sandable hard gesso. Because this is not flexible, that gesso works really well for it. And I use a roller and I put a coat on, let it dry, sand it, put another coat on, let it dry, sand it. I also do the edges and the back to seal the whole board. That allows no moisture to get in, because moisture is what does damage to paintings. So we will need 1 5x7 and 2 6x6s for our paintings that we will be working on as we go along in this course. To receive the handout for each of the lessons, head on over to my website, dancingravenstudio.ca. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next art video.